Hey guys, it's Matt. Let me start on a somber note and then we'll work to collectively improve our mood. The old world is gone. I don't, I was in a horrible mood coming into this video. Sometimes I know I'm talking to you guys, I'm going to see your comments, whatever, share some information, knowing there's if Charlton Heston was the only one on the Planet of the Apes, it'd be pretty bad. And it was really bad for him. I mean, this is an interesting parallel to our situation because he came upon a group of humans and they were mute. They didn't talk. Their IQ level was 100,000 times lower than Forrest Gump's. And all his companions, his compadres, they that were on the spaceship with him that arrived back at the Planet of the Apes, which was actually Earth in the future. I hope that's no spoiler. I think this movie is like 1967. But there was nobody he could associate with. I mean, that's real depressing. At least we have each other. Okay, we have each other, and there are hundreds of thousands of people, and that's very small. That I was going to say that see what we do. If you include the people that dabble in truth and see that skyscrapers just don't turn to dust and things, people that maybe are dabbling into truth but are drawn down the wrong path by the system itself. I mean, there's tens of millions of those people, but we don't associate with most of those people. We don't associate with the Q Anon people, like Greg's mother who watches videos and she's waiting for Trump to make his move. She's waiting for the sealed indictments to finally get unsealed. Guys, the old world, we just to we need to tell ourselves every aspect of ourselves, including aspects that aren't here, and consciousness that there's a part of us that's not in this snow globe game. We just have to be very honest with ourselves, and this is based on the depression of the opening ceremonies last night. Not that I needed to see that to form these conclusions. These conclusions have been coming. I've been holding out a little bit of wait and see that there would be some sort of return to what we call humanity in the general population. But let's just face facts here. This isn't a doom and gloom channel or a fear channel. It is time to face the facts. The old world is gone forever, forever. Let's be very honest with ourselves about this. Um, I wouldn't when I come to that realization, and we've all known this, Matt, this is nothing new. Okay, okay, but it's time to really talk it out. And those opening ceremonies last night, if there was one more nail to put in that coffin, maybe I was holding out, this part of the coffin doesn't have a nail. Maybe I don't know what the point of that is. Like, is the dead body going to get out? The last nail in the coffin? I don't know the point of that whole saying. I mean, what's the like? Is there a chance the dead body's going to get out or something? I don't know. So, um, there was a portion on the coffin where there was no last nail, and we were all holding out a degree of hope. But after what I saw last night, um, I'm not going to break down the opening ceremonies. I'm sure there's YouTube channels are very frustrated this morning because they didn't really give you anything to break down. If you didn't see it, let's just talk about, the main point of this video is, and let me deliver the second part of that. The second part of that is all that's important. The old world is gone. Everything you knew about the world, the transition is now permanent. It'll go back a tiny bit, and you'll see glimpses of what seemed like a real world, like when 2 months ago, Phil Mickelson winning the PGA Golf Championship and thousands of people in South Carolina surrounding him, walking up the 18th green. Just the first time I remember, first time in any sporting event for a year and a half, no masks. So there was little glimpses, and they'll continue to show us little glimpses of the old world, but they will remind us that the Iron Boot has not gone anywhere. I mean, what I saw last night in the opening ceremonies, I didn't know. I mean, it was really depressing. The only thing more depressing I've ever seen was the 20, was it, no, it was 2020 into 2021 New Year's Eve. with Ryan Seacrest and these other um, Anderson Cooper does the New Year's Eve special. That was the most depressing, energy draining thing I've ever seen in my life. But we'll talk about that later. But let's get to the good news is we all admitted several months ago that we wouldn't go back. I mean, okay, the old world is gone, um, but we wouldn't go back. Nobody would go back. So if we wouldn't go back, but almost by definition, if you will, I don't like that statement, slogan or whatever, but I'm just going to use it here. If you will, um, eh, we wouldn't go back. So by definition, this is a preferred situation. If we see, by definition, this is a preferred situation if we wouldn't go back. So we just know too much about ourselves now, our place in the universe, if you will. We know too much, so it wouldn't go back. But it's still depressing. It's still depressing. You know, I used to live in Kingswood Apartments. It was called Kingswood Apartments. And get this, in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. It's all normal to me growing up. And then you run into somebody out of state and you're like, where do you live? And you say it so quick they don't even know what you're saying. You'd be like, King of Prussia. That's what we say outside Philly. It's like a quick king, just Quick king of Prussia. There's just an A and an Ew, I'm from King of Prussia. From what? It's so, and I'm like, yeah, and years later I figured, yeah, that must be very odd to somebody, but if you grew up in it, it's so normal. King of Prussia? There's a town outside Philly called King of Prussia. Yeah, anyway, I've talked about it before, but the big mall and all this ridiculous nonsense. So you grow up there and you don't think anything of it. But what I was going to say was, in these really crappy, they probably fixed them up, but they look the same from the outside. Kingswood Apartments, just I don't know, like thousands of units. It was just even for now, it's gigantic. I wouldn't want to go back and live there now. I mean, that's the old world, but I can still reminisce. I can still once every 10 years or so I'll drive by, get out of the car and walk a block in the neighborhood or something and reminisce. Oh yeah, that's where we carved our Jody and I we carved our that's a guy. We carved our name and other kids in this wet cement. And the person that did it, the cement guy, was so furious. He came charging his truck up the hill and we all scattered. I think he grabbed one of us, like, what's he going to do? But because he had to just turn around and I don't know if I guess he just applied fresh cement over it, but he was not happy chasing us down. So that's the old world. I don't want to go back and live there. I don't want to, you can reminisce about maybe this is why 80s music is so popular. Maybe we all, even the complete, we are not, I'm going to just call it human being 2.0, but it's not human being 2.0. Um, there's many reiterations, if that's the right word, of human beings. So it's really probably like 100.0. And I think we've even gone through the pattern of what the society and what the system wants to mold a human being into. But at some point we stopped and got off the ride. And that's kind of what happened to us. I brought this radio here for a little exercise to demonstrate, what the reality is doing in the simplest of senses. We got off. So I think at some point we were on, or I used to, most of us here were on the ride with everybody else. And it kind of the system itself, using whatever means at its disposal, reset a human being. And we went along with that. And that even things probably changed and it would seem to those that got off the ride 10 or 15 or 20 years ago, it would seem crazy how we were going along with it. But at some point we got off. And this is, it just takes me right back to the same analogy. Got off standing on the side of the river as what do we call it? The ship of fools on the river of insanity sails by. It's kind of just leads all back to the same analogy. But it's sailed. I mean, it's sailed, and it's there's no going back to it. But maybe even I'm just going to again call it human being 2.0. It's probably human being 100.0. They've probably put 100 different um, maybe that's every, CERN, you're going to pull the lever at CERN. Yeah, a new reiteration of a human being, if that's the right word. Pull the lever at CERN, but it doesn't work on us anymore, which is good. We wouldn't go back. So I'll just call it human being 2.0, and we're just to keep it simple, we're human being 1.0. But I think there's been a lot more changes, even a lot of changes that have affected us. So um, whatever human being 2.0 is, there's no other way to describe it. It's just they're completely susceptible to the download, and maybe we all were. We didn't. When it happens, you don't notice it. It's simply, I'll bring this out in a minute. It's putting a human being down to a certain part or a certain band on the dial where they are basically just are at a certain frequency where they will go along with everything that the system wants and that the system presents. So from our perspective, again, we got off the ride and we wouldn't choose to go back. I guess one or two or three of us in this community would choose to be Cypher in the Matrix and say, yeah, I want the real world back, and they would want to jump back in the Matrix. And I'm sure there's a few, but the overwhelming majority of us would not go back. And again, let's just talk about the opening ceremonies. If you didn't see them, you're fortunate. You didn't miss anything. Um, First off, the mask thing was just, talk about the final nail in the coffin or the need to come out and make this video. I'm basically just saying things we all know or we've known for 6 months, that the old world is not returning. And before I was going to say something, it just popped into my head. I forgot to say it a few minutes back. I was going to say maybe human being, what even 2.0 or whatever, all human beings still have, certain qualities or powers or latent abilities. And if you're not an NPC or organic portal, but we don't know how many real people are left here that are just taking the download, how many real people are left here that just are going along with everything the system tells them to do versus background people. That's not the purpose of this video, so we just assume everybody's real. Um, they still have, even though their power or their ability to tap into any of their intuitive powers have been taken away by the system, they might have abilities they're not even aware of. And this is getting a little long-winded to make a simple point, so let me just say it. All this nostalgia that came from for the 80s, and even Glenn Fry has given interviews, and he's like, just at the point where nobody cared about the Eagles anymore. Don Henley, Glenn Fry, the Eagles, Hotel California. Um, Everybody, I guess, no matter what country you're in, you know that. He said, just when we were getting, nobody cared. We couldn't even sell out a 500-seat stadium. This thing came in a huge wave, swept the country, called classic rock stations. And all of a sudden we were popular again. And, he said it something like this. And 5 years later, we were offered stadiums again. So it's almost like the nostalgia. It's almost like people had a latent a power in them, and they would never know what they're really tapping into. That the world is just completely evolving away unnaturally from anything that they knew or anything they would recognize. So, there was this, without people even being aware of it, this need to hold on to the past, which probably could be easily seen through the 80s nostalgia music, all 80s things, even TV shows, as well as the classic rock. Of course, there are other reasons for that. If anybody's screaming out at me, I can hear you that, well, there's no good new music, so people resorted back to the old and rediscovered the old. Sure. I'm just saying there could be there could be reason in the human being 2.0 as to why they crave certain things without them even being aware of why they crave those things. For example, this is the same as to why a pregnant mother craves certain junk food or whatever. The body is in need of certain minerals or vitamins or a higher level of calories because of what the baby is taking. And this is it goes. You could carry that theme right through certain animals, in the heat, they crave almost for their own survival. Salt lick. Salt is essential to all survival for all mammals. And interesting enough, what does the system tell us about salt? I mean, everything is an inversion. I can't say any more about that. I have no, you know, you have to, I guess, be some sort of licensed professional to have a conversation, a simple conversation on YouTube. But so, guys, the about the opening ceremonies, um, the every country that came out, I hope I can, I hope I can switch up my mood from complete depression to thinking, just looking at it and laughing at it. I'm close to doing that. Excuse me. Every country that came out introduced their athletes, and every single country but two were in a mask. Um, it is incredible what quote they have been able to pull off here. Absolutely incredible. I mean, I didn't know what to expect, but at least, guys, Australians don't understand what I'm about to say, but at least the United States, the the Coke Zero box came out a month and a half ago, and like I alluded to a video or two ago, it said something like, "Get out there and enjoy your summer," or "It's time to have summer again," or something. I don't know, but I looked at it and said, "Okay, Coke's not getting it wrong. They're absolutely have a seat at the creepy table. If they're alluding to the fact that we're going to have a relatively normal summer on the box, then that's what they will allow the free range slaves. That's what Coke's not going to get it wrong. You can do this in a lot of regards. If Disney's coming out, the doom and gloomers on YouTube where the asteroid's going to hit or Nibiru or the world's going to blow up or this or that catastrophe is going to happen. If Disney's coming out with a big movie release, say, I mean, you could even say if we know for sure the Matrix 4 is coming out, say it's in December. I think it's still slated for December of 2021 this year. You could say at least we have till then because see they're at the table. They're not going to get it wrong. They're not going to, like if Disney's coming out with a major movie, and I don't even look at what studios are going to release what, but March of 2022 they're going to do whatever. It's some big ass release. You can say at least we have till then before the whole they kill us all. I mean, I don't think they're gonna do that. They harvest our energy, all this doom and gloom on YouTube. I don't prescribe to it, or if that's the right word, or I don't abide by it. Man, that's not a good word for it either. I don't buy into it. All this doom and gloom. What they do to a human being is carefully calculated, probably for thousands of years, probably, and they're patient beyond measure. They're patient even beyond what we would consider to be a human lifetime, and they're going to kill us all off. It's just this, again, please, if you go to these YouTube channels and they push this fear, I said, please turn them off. Um, and back to my last video, I mean, I'm sorry to rant the way I did. A lot of people like this, Matt, better, calmer approach. More um, environmentally friendly. I'm not as obnoxious and condescending. I was just in that mood, and I was kind of frustrated with a lot of YouTube channels that sit down and just open up their toy box to try to figure out what's going on when there's a whole host of things going on here that are outside the confines of our understanding of known reality. There's no other way to explain it. So did kind of go off, and it was just the mental mood I was in. But if you're watching, I just don't understand if you watch a YouTube video and somebody's presenting something about how things work or the system, and they're every bit of what they're presenting has an explanation as that can only be explained between the reality bookends, or it has to be absolutely real how this was accomplished or this was pulled off. I just don't understand that at this point. We have too many too many reality breakdown examples. What I could have done if I was mentally fit enough to do it and I could have kept going, I could have done what I did yesterday for 20 other major examples going back to the Bang events and I mean just you could take I did the general category of space, but you could then break it down into 50 sub presentations inside of the general category of space that all lead on their own, like V'ger 1 and 2 to reality breakdowns. And just the fact that how somebody the caliber of Vintage Space has a YouTube channel and is able to actually maintain it, that is a reality breakdown in and of itself. Still has not replied to my invitation for Naked and Afraid. But oh, there is hope. There is hope. She's probably like, what? He's an old man. Who says that? Was it Dangerous Liaisons with a 16 or 17-year-old? I guess she was 18. Uma Thurman was 18, but because she got naked was 18, but she was supposed to play like a 16-year-old during right before the French Revolution, was it? I guess. And John Malkovich trying to seduce every single woman because that's all he does is the Vicomte of and Dangerous Liaison. Just that's all he does is collect his millions of dollars a day and try to seduce women for fun and then I guess it wasn't. It was actually she was Uma Thurman wasn't calling John Malkovich an old man. She was being arranged marriage to a guy that was like 38, and she was like, "Ew, he's an old man." That's probably Vintage Space is saying that about me. Let me tell you what, Vintage Space, you ain't no spring chicken anymore, honey. If I send over my box of chocolates, they should be received, honey. Sorry. So we have. I think I think um, I use the download to explain why people just go along with everything and they just completely accept the narratives that come through the news and that I guess I'll why hold back, you can't go too far, can't go far enough, and there's no conspiracy that would probably be too weird for this population, so I'll go all the way. But the simplest explanation is download. And it's to me the best way to describe that is what the hell? So if I play it another few seconds, I'll get striked or something. I mean it's that pathetic, that brutal. Um, so we're down, maybe we all started down the dial. What we're at least right now we're down the dial, but they've got human beings.
That she used to like or that she used to do, whatever. That would be longer than Greg's list. Never. I think absolutely. Every other day there's something new on there. Worse for me to go to bed is a full combination pizza. Oh yeah.
Oh my, that's the dumbed down shit. Anyway, that's that's on the radio. And how's the radio still even exist? Anyway, so they have everybody's frequency down the other end of the dial. Do I really need to show this? I mean, I guess you got it. Um, Most people here are adult enough and have the mental capacity to understand this prop example. I have to keep showing it. Um, they have people down at the other end of the dial, and for lack of better words, it's just like Khan said on SETI Alpha 6. We thought this was SETI Alpha 5. Khan says, I'm going to put these little creatures in your ear that make you susceptible to suggestion. I can't do Khan right now. I could if I saw it. And he puts those little creatures in Chekhov's ear, and the whenever the Star Trek brings a character that you don't know, it's disposable. That person's going to die, definitely going to die, and that's what that captain did. They put the shit in his ear, make them susceptible to suggestion. It's probably just coming out. I mean, it's a truth drop. They put it in your ear. They put the frequency in your ear, or they put the Wi-Fi in you, or and just like Chekhov and that captain, they become susceptible to suggestion. In the movie, to Khan, but in this life, all the people down your cul-de-sac to what the system wants. So how many people watched the opening ceremonies, and just thought it was completely normal that thousands of athletes came in for all countries but two. I didn't say what those two were. Let me just get it out now. One, I believe, was they were both of the stands. Tajikistan, I think, was one. Came in, what do they have? They have some handlers, some trainers, and then they have just, I don't know, 10 to 15 athletes, very small contingents, no masks, maybe one or two people. I think one was Tajikistan, and one I think was called Kurdistan. I think it's a new stand. Um, uh, get a new plan, Stan. Don't need to be coy, Roy. Just listen to me, people. Hop on the bus, Gus. Don't need to discuss much. That's a truth drop. We'll talk about that some other time. Kurdistan, I don't. It was one of the newer stands. I had never really heard of it before. They came out first with a very small contingency, maybe 12, 15, 14 athletes or people with no masks. But this is after thousands and thousands of people with masks. In the rant video I presented in the last video, I talked about in the C section how unnatural and impossible it is to just have every country in lockstep coordination without any dissenting voices. And that was on display. I had no idea what was coming. I mean, obviously I didn't say anything new to you, but I had no idea what was coming because I guess you could say if that needed to be reinforced, which it doesn't, but there's no better reinforcement than country after country after country after country coming out with their huge contingency of athletes, 15 athletes, 50 athletes. The United States has hundreds of people coming out, like France and the UK have hundreds of people coming out, all in masks. And I mean almost 100% person to person, country by country. And these countries are coming out from the Middle East. Jordan, announcing Jordan, here they come. King Abdullah coming out in a speedo. And then they have Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, or all African nations coming out. Nations, the Maldives. I mean, just shit in the middle of nowhere. Mauritania or Mauritius, if that's even a place. All in their masks, going, what? You know what? Now, look, there could be, you know, if somebody's crying out, raising up out of the bubble bath, I hear you saying, Matt, look, not you're wrong. That all they don't have everybody in the world marching to the same download. They do, but not to the degree you're saying. It's very simple, Matt. If Mauritania or Mauritius, if these are even countries, I don't know what I saw last night. If they want to come to the Olympics, Matt, they're told what they're going to do. So you're going to get okay, maybe they even can't even afford it. So Tokyo says, okay, here's a check for $200,000 to cover your expenses. They have all the money they need, just printed up out of the bank at Japan. They just print up whatever they need in coordination with the Fed. And they said, you're going to come here, though. You're going to wear your mask, boys and girls. Don't give me no lip. Don't be doing your own thing. And maybe that obviously there might have been it might have been the rules that were presented to them, and is that's still indicative of the download? Isn't just okay? They just went along with the rules. Okay, and at least this I want to go live in Kurdistan or Tajikistan or whatever these two countries. I just got the impression that they said F this. I really did. It was a little bit of a look of defiance in, a little bit of a look or feel. Now maybe that's just I was so desperate to look for any sort of defiance or anybody pushing back. Maybe that's what I saw, but I felt it. I really did. You didn't feel it, Matt. It was a 10-hour tape delay, you jackass. It was, so I didn't feel it, but you know what I mean? But it did seem that way. Now it could be if you want to get really conspiratorial, isn't that somebody's crying out from their bubble bath? Like, Matt, talk about, isn't that where they built that Astana, that new world order capital of that Astana, whatever? And maybe that whatever that Astana is in one of the stands or whatever, that this is as creepy as it gets. If you've never seen a video, they built this. It's like a ghost city, but they built it in the middle of nowhere, and the people just, I don't know, beautiful buildings and huge buildings and columns, and not a drop of trash or a blade of grass out of place for so many square miles. And It's like, who built this? And they can explain it away to the people. They can explain anything away to the people. The way Ken probably, my buddy Ken, he doesn't probably watch these videos anymore. Okay, I start burping like Matt. People send me email about reflux. It's okay. Um, Ken will say he explains everything away with sneaker contracts, and you can explain away Astana and the billions of dollars it took to build that. People say, Matt, they have huge oil and gas reserves, and the money has to go somewhere. Oh yeah, why didn't I think of that? Oh yeah, okay. And what the destruction of Aleppo and people still, getting their water supply from, rusty water pipes and going to the bathroom in holes in the ground. That's just so they could build a pipeline. It's all, Matt, it all relates back to rich corporate greed. Oh yeah. It has nothing to do with rich corporate greed. That is a tertiary benefit. This entire reality is structured to harvest a human being, to extract energy, loosh, and to keep you from understanding yourself. So you go into your death just probably dying to come back and get back into a body so you can be harvested and used as food all over again. I mean, it's pretty simple at this point. It really is. Um, excuse me. It gets, with the pursuit of truth, or whatever you want to call what we do, it gets extremely, extremely complicated for a few years because that's what the system feeds us. That's the bait it feeds us. But then the main goal is to cut through all that noise. And once you find the right tool to do that, mental tool or skill, or I would talk about the ability to read the matrix code, things like that. Once you find the right tools to do that, it becomes extremely simple. I'm about to sneeze. Um, how ridiculous, how crazy is it if you're in a crowd and you sneeze? I mean, I've seen people go, oh, anybody sneeze. I've had people like, run to leave the area because if you sneeze, in today's environment at a restaurant, it's the equivalent of like it's like a movie where you open up a jacket and you're wired up with explosives and the lights are blinking. It's like he's got a bomb. He's about to sneeze. Get down. I mean, this is what they've evolved the world into. It's incredible what they've been able to do and what they've been able to pull off. So let's just wrap up the long haircut. Let's wrap up the opening ceremonies. Two countries without masks. I'll maybe in the comments section if I can remember, but at some point I'll tell you exactly what those two countries were. And thank you. I just got the feeling they just went, no, I'm not doing it. They were told to do it, and they just said, F it. By my heel, I care not. And thank you. Thank you. I'm going to probably go live where you live at some point. That's if you can get out of the country, Matt. How you gonna do that? I can rent ships like the Silesian pirates in Spartacus. We can band together, make our way to the sea, and then wait for we could get maybe the little boats that the Somalian pirates used to attack the gigantic. I mean, that story is the most ridiculous thing of all time as it was going on. Let's just do a sidebar on this. You can't, I've never talked about this. Well, maybe years and years ago. It's so funny. Um, and when they make a Tom Hanks movie about it, then it's crafted woven into reality falsely. And the way they presented it, you have these gigantic you know what I'm going to talk about, the Gulf of Aden. Remember, this was a huge news story, I don't know, maybe 8 to 10 years ago, how these Somalian pirates were boarding and taking over these container ships because they have to go through this narrow Gulf of Aden or whatever. It's the presentation is so ridiculous. If anybody doesn't know where I'm going, it's fake. Of course it's fake. They might have tried once and they would have immediately corrected the problem. Let me just get to the point. You have these huge container ships, guys. If you've never been close, these things are beyond big. The way I describe the Cologne Cathedral. Um, I've seen them come, under the Golden Gate Bridge. I used to live out in San Diego and come under the Bay Bridge. I actually had a view of the Bay Bridge, and we were far away from the ships, but they were still massive. China Ocean Shipping Company, Maersk. What was the one that was, of course, stuck in Suez? That was because that was completely legitimate. Was it Evergreen? evergreen. Al Gore would be loving the fact that that one got stuck. Um, they're huge. Then you have the Somalia pirates, and just like, and I saw the pictures of them in, I was reading the Economist magazine at the time in 97, 98, 99, because that was, I thought that was making me a real intelligent studier of the news and somebody superior, because I read the Economist, I was superior to somebody that read Time magazine. They were still magazines at the time. Newsweek was still published. I was a much more I was an intellectual because I read the Economist magazine. I was amazing. I didn't back in the day. I was more of a conservative, so I wouldn't have gone to the Atlantic magazine. But I was very proud of myself that I read every single article that the Economist ever put forth about what Robert Mugabe did to Rhodesia slash Zimbabwe. I was just so thrilled with my knowledge and loved to show it off at cocktail parties. And I was a matrix jerk just like everybody else. Not some of you weren't, like people like Greg and people like Faye, Saul. The moment they submitted their 7-Eleven job application, they were like, "This isn't right." The very first day, I was certainly wasn't like that. It took me years to see it. So the pirate story, these these Somali pirates come out in like glorified canoes, like something 2 or 3 times the size or 4 times the size of Pocahontas used to escape with Captain Smith, if I'm getting that right. They're little, and they've got a little motor on the back, and they've got, of course, they've got their Kalashnikovs. So they all have their Kalashnikovs. Anybody ever stop and go, where are they getting all these Kalashnikovs? Who's distributing them around the world? On purpose, Matt? Yeah, on purpose. So they're coming. So you've got guys in rowboats coming, not rowboats, but these little like in Ocean City, they used to have these little wooden boats you could rent with a little motor on the back called Lamonts. Lamonts. It's like $10 a day. Lamonts boats. That's what they attack these. It's like a mosquito attacking a Humvee. But these, so this went on for years. How these Somali pirates were causing all these problems for these gigantic container ships. And according to the Tom Hanks movie, several of them were taken over. First of all, you think, why don't these gigantic container ships with hundreds of millions of dollars of wares on them, why don't they just hire 2 security guards with machine guns? That would be the end of it. Or mount a 50 cal on the end of it, and the Somali pirates you could take them out at about a half mile out with 50 caliber rounds. You wouldn't even need to spend more than $10,000 to take care of the problem. So, I mean, if even if you didn't arm 2 ex Blackwater guys to protect the thing with a mounted 50 cal, it's all you would need. You wouldn't even need that. You need the Rock from Fast and Furious 7 or 8 running around with his 6 shooter. You need one guy like that. A giant fire hose could do it, and that they have the giant fire hoses. Maybe that's why it's coming to mind. They actually use the fire hoses to fight them off. But that should be effective. Anyway, it was such a joke, such a joke. If it's at all at risk, just put a few security guards on with some major weaponry, and that's the end of it. And if it's a real problem, I mean, we didn't. I guess for a long time, I didn't really look into it closely, or we didn't know that. Well, what are they attacking these big ships with, these Somalia pirates? Maybe it's more sophisticated, and maybe like big gigantic speedboats with mounted 50 cal and whatever. Well, if it's such a problem, this United States military and 600 billion just patrol the damn Gulf of Aden back and forth with Blackhawks or whatever. How hard would that be? It's just, guys, it's as absurd as one of my favorite things to go through of all time is the Benghazi. um, Even when that happened, I believed every bit of it. I don't know what elements of that are real and what elements are not. Of course, at this point, I have the tendency to assume that if it's a big event on that date, that it is complete fabrication. I'm much more apt to be on that side of things. But just as the way um, it was presented in my book, there's a section where I outlined, they said that 13 hours, whatever the compound in Benghazi was attacked, and they tried to hold them off for 13 hours, and they got no support from AFRICOM and the U.S. military. And actually, they floated it out to the masses that the main reason was we couldn't get there in time. Like, well, first off, this is the story we're presented, guys. I don't buy any bit of it at this point, but let's just go with the story that's presented. They said, well, we didn't think it would last that long. Well, you don't know how long it's going to last. You have this trillions of dollars of military infrastructure. You have one chance every 10 years to use it. You wouldn't just mobilize it? Well, we didn't think we could get there in time. They floated that out, if you remember, or at least that's what the normie would say at the cocktail party to explain it away. Well, of course, but they couldn't get there in time. Well, the movie's called 13 Hours. So in the book, I explained literally how a drunk at a bar in, what did I call it? Naples, Italy. Um, a drunk at a bar could have arrived in Benghazi inside of the 13 hours and gotten there in time to help. He hears what's going on, or he gets I think in the book I said Ambassador Stevens sends his email to the wrong email address. The drunk in the bar says, "Oh, but they're under attack. I'm going to go try to help." Well, you'll never reach him in time. I'm still going to go try. He drives drunk to the Rome airport, has to wait hours and hours for a flight to Tripoli, Morocco or whatever, or Libya or whatever, wherever he can get to northern Africa. Then he charters another Cessna flight. I think the drunk could get there in 10 hours, but the U.S. military command, AFRICOM, um, hundreds of billions of dollars of F-18 and F-16s in southern Europe and Italy at Afterburner they could reach in 20 minutes, but the normie will explain it away to you that they just couldn't get there in time, and that's the end of it. If you continue along this line of inquiry, Matt, I will consider you a conspiracy theorist. Oh, I'll shut up. I'm sorry. Sorry. Don't tell anybody. Um, so this is the human being 2.0 we have to deal with. Is really like 2000.0 probably. So, guys, the NBC presentation of the opening ceremony, one of the really bizarre things, besides everybody coming out in a mask, was they have these huge spectacle. It doesn't usually look like a North Korean parade where they have Kim Jong Un shows up and they've got like 100,000 people in unison out there on their like gigantic tarmac, all doing the same thing, waving the flag. That's pretty. What the North Koreans do is pretty impressive. But what people screaming at me saying they got nothing else to do? Well, yeah, they'd have nothing else to do, so that makes sense. But what China presented, what other countries presented, even what Greece presented, it's usually a big spectacle. So you're watching Tokyo, and you're waiting for this big spectacle to start. They're doing their artistic this and that, and I don't think it ever eclipsed, other than the drone. I'll tell you what the drones did if you didn't see it. It never eclipsed what a high school or even a middle school could do. There was no spectacle. You're just waiting for it to start, and lights and thousands of actors and people coming out, and there was this. Most of it was just this. They brought out these 20 wooden tables or something that looked like wooden tables, and they were pretending to hammer. Boo! They were pretending to hammer on these wooden tables. And Mike Tirico. I mean, is there anybody in the world more obnoxious than Mike Tirico? He just, yeah, oh my, we need a professional to chaperone the Olympics, and what a clown. He's horrible. So here's Japan's going to present their culture, and he's so sophisticated in his presentation. Mike Tirico was just reading off cue cards. And then was it Savannah Guthrie or whatever was with him? I don't know, but it was just horrible. Even Chris Collinsworth would have been better. He did the Sochi. He's one of the most grating people you'll ever see. Excuse me. So they're just running around. There's nothing going on. A few lights, a few tables. Where's the giant procession of people? You had an extra year. What are you doing? Well, and it was so bizarre that even on the little lanterns they had down on the thing, it said Tokyo Olympics 2020. You built the entire stadium. It's empty. Okay, there's no fans. They didn't Tokyo Japan didn't allow anybody in. And I say that like countries make real decisions. I don't think they do. Of course, it answers to the one world group, just like every other country. I don't think there are any exceptions to that. There could be. Um, I don't think there are any exceptions to that because even in a country like, well, I don't want to get into talking about Tanzania and Switzerland again. I mean, not Switzerland, Sweden. Leave it alone. It's a one world system, and they haven't left anybody alone. If the concession from Tajikistan said, "I'm not wearing these masks," well, whatever. Were the men in black going to come out and tackle them all and say, "Put your mask on, or else you don't get to march"? A few things are going to slip through the cracks, but for the most part, it's a one world system. So there's no fans. Japan decided, of course, because they decided on their own. Don't It's this whole new. I guarantee it's brand new Olympic Stadium built. I don't know, 70,000, 80,000, 100,000 seats, hundreds of millions of dollars spent, and there's like, you know, it could hold with standing room only for the Olympic ceremonies. If anything were normal, easily 120,000 people could have been in there. And there was, I don't know, total, if you take away the athletes, just the spectators and dignitaries, total like 1,000 people. It was empty. And you have this entire brand new stadium built. And you know where want to go with this. You consider the poverty in the world, people that are in need, and you have this empty. And even when there's a quote successful Olympics where everybody's not afraid of a V, it's still ridiculous waste. You see, it's used for the Olympics like the bird's nest, and then it becomes a bird's nest. Birds fly in, and the pigeons go up into the rafters, and it's not really used for much after that. Or maybe they have some soccer matches in it. Well, so what? It's really not all the waste for the facilities built for the Olympics that could have gone into something, people that are actually in need, etc. But this is the ultimate of that because there wasn't even any fans or whatever spectators or whatever. So you have that, and you have it's like, well, they're trying. I guess I was going to say they're trying to save money by put the little lanterns. They're carrying the little lanterns attached to little wooden tables where they're hammering away. It says Tokyo Olympics 2020. Like, well, you didn't want to spend the money you couldn't update the lantern. What's that? Send it back to the print shop for $5? I don't know. Somebody crying out from their bathtub. I hear you like, oh, Matt, it's supposed to be 2020. That's how it's still going to go down, 2020. Whatever, fine. I guess they could spend the money to update the lanterns. But the whole presentation was bizarre. It was nothing much more than a middle school could have put together. And, it's like you had an extra year. So you're waiting for this big thing, that spectacle. It never happened. But then I guess they tried to make up for it with the drones. They said 1,800. I think they said the gematria has to be worked into everything. I think they said 1,800 drones created the ball Earth above above the stadium, and it was impressive how that how these drones work together to create a gigantic planet above the stadium. I mean, and then they're showing all this with the stadium in the background, and there was a blimp up there or something taking pictures, so from a helicopter, something high up in the air, or a plane, and then they showed most of Tokyo or the streets, and it was like completely empty. And if somebody could comment on this, excuse me, I don't. Is Tokyo still under some sort of are they under curfew because of sea, or it just was empty. It was there's nothing going. I mean, it's just the streets looked like empty. So it is weird when we talk about this sea thing. Coca-Cola will tell the United States it's looking like getting back to normal, and the masters will let the chickens those the producing veal out of the cages to run around and make it seem like, oh, it's get back to normal. But then they'll like they're doing it to other countries where if anything was real about what this thing's supposed to be, every country would be in the same situation because of all the people coming and going. I said in the last video it would be like Outbreak. I think that's that movie with is it Dustin Hoffman? I think I meant Contagion, where it just shows one flight. All of a sudden it's out of control. Well, every country would be in the same situation, but it's how they've normalized it. They've got everybody believing it can be isolated now. This is the new normal. Is mostly about what bullcrap they can get human being 2.0 to believe. That the new normal is how everybody just goes along with it. Well, there's like hundreds and hundreds of migrant workers, coming back and forth across the border. You have, for any normal country, you have 300 flights a day, where there's some commercial, one small charter, Cessna planes. You have trains that go internationally that cross borders. You have ships that come in to deliver goods, and the pilot, I guess you call it the pilot, of the captain and the crew come off. They deboat or deplane, and you have all people coming and going. So you wouldn't have some countries in crisis and other countries, looking pretty good, and you wouldn't have that. It would be every country would be in the exact same situation, and somehow, you tell that to your family, and they just call you names. You're a conspiracy theorist for presenting. I'm a conspiracy theorist for saying a V should act the way you've always been told a V acts your whole life. Don't you remember your seventh grade health class? I mean, it's like, what? But anyway, guys, so when they started, a couple more things about the opening ceremonies that any seventh or eighth grade group in a middle school could put together. The Japanese, you should be very proud of yourselves for whatever that was. I mean, that makes I'd rather go see Hamilton, and that's saying something. I'd much rather see Hamilton than whatever it would to be, knowing what was coming. If I was in the front row of what Tokyo presented, it was horrible. There wasn't anything there. But the first, it started, of course, with that same emerald green color, and it's still a mystery to me. I'm sure there's a small segment that they'll email me or put a comment. They got it all figured out, and I assure you, we do not have it all figured out with how they're using the presentation of the emerald green. It appears the first person they showed in the opening ceremony, which should be a spectacle, it turned out to be nothing. The emerald green is behind the first person they showed. It was just one person in the middle of, the stadium, one person under a spotlight of emerald green, and it was behind them, the shadow of a seed emerged. It was kind of like in high school, whatever we've seen in time lapse photography. We've seen it's amazing when that sun comes through how this camera it picks it up, and whoo. You'd think a spotlight. There's no professional studio here. My goodness, just from a little sun beaming in, how does the Mac even do that? I don't know, but it's bright to even me, guys. Looking at it's almost like the screen got brighter with the sun. I think it just toned itself down. That's weird. So let me move back a bit. Um, so the green is presented all over the place. Remember, it's the portal in World of Warcraft. It's the representation of the devil itself in the John Carpenter called the Apocalypse trilogy, of which I believe The Thing is the first, Prince of Darkness is the second, and Into the Mouth of Madness is the third. Prince of Darkness, the devil itself is presented as a green glow, just like the Lochnar. My goodness, that's bright. What the heck? Back up. Um, so the same green colors behind the one Japanese athlete, and of course, I don't know how they made the shadow. This was the only thing impressive, other than the drones, was they did behind the athlete on the ground. It looked like a time lapse of you've seen a plant coming up with its I don't know. A plant will come up bent and then it will straighten up like a flower could come up in one day. The time lapse of that. They did that with the shadow behind the athlete in the green color. And then some of the other, Japanese actors or whatever or performers came out. But it was right off the bat that same green that I noticed. And there's one more thing I wanted to talk about the opening ceremonies. And I know this isn't very exciting, but even the just to bitch a little bit, I guess. Even the there's okay. This is an massive empty stadium, and of course, just to make the presentation, they want to show the world, even all the dignitaries. The United States sent Jill Biden. Okay, Jill, Doctor. Sorry, Doctor Jill Biden. So she's every time they show the dignitaries, they're in the masks the whole time. Well, they have the whole stadium. I mean, see, if anything were real, and it's not just a false presentation, trying to reinforce things into the mindless masses, if any people just were being real and acting like real human beings, and anything about this was real, they would just say, we've got a whole stadium here. Dr. Jill Biden would say, let's just let's just sit let's just sit 10 feet apart. I don't want to wear this for 2 hours. I mean, it would be that simple. They still set apart every other seat or so, but and then even the head of the Olympic Committee or whatever he comes, even the people that came up to the podium all have their masks on. Now we've even in the even in Australia, the people that take the podiums, I think, to tell you about there's been one case in Northwest Territory, they'll still take it off as they get up to the podium. Oh, they couldn't do that. See, that it has to be a certain presentation, a reinforcement of some kind, uh, whether it be to the conscious mind or the subconscious mind. It is incredible how they do business. It is as dark as it gets. It's fascinating, and these people, if we're gonna, well, I don't like calling ourselves human because that's a system term, but we still struggle with replacing. We should work to replace that word because language is spellcraft. But for now, we are the closest thing left to a real human is us, me and you, and anybody watching this, or anybody similar in the truth community. We'll of course include our whole group here. We're not special here, but we're the closest thing to what is considered whatever's left in some definition of a real human. We're the closest thing left. And I said, a year ago, I said, in this time period coming up, all these channels are talking about, or you could call them, some are, they're labeled New Age by many, but the people talk about ascension and leveling up and all this. And I started to say, probably even 2 years ago, I started to say, no, it's time just to hold on. You know, it's just what is the old guy with leprosy says in Braveheart to Robert the Bruce. It's not time to charge out and do all this stuff with William Wallace. He says it's time to survive. And I really believe when I came out with this, and I said a year and a half ago, whenever it was, I said, if we can use all the things here in this reality system to do all this great stuff, of course we should try. But I get the sense like just they're working so hard to remove any humanity from people. Just holding on to the right path, just staying on the right path and doing no more than that might be the definition of a successful life. To come through this and to say, I held on, holding on the edge of the cliff, and it's the equivalent of what the society through its culture and its minions and its darkness is doing is like millions of ostriches with boots and spurs stamping on our fingers as we're trying to hold on. I mean, just in this environment, maybe through the rest of our lives, you know, um, I feel I do, something's talking to me, right? Not something's talking to me like Tony in the Shining. I mean, I feel like I should say that's no, we need to do more than that. But maybe I want to say for now, just hold on to yourself. It's pretty darn good. You're on the path, and just, when the dust settles a little bit, like, am I still on this path? Everybody every family, friends have been not on the a neighboring path, other than they're like in cages on the ship of fools going down the river insanity, like bye, saying goodbye to the Titanic. So am I still on the path? Oh, that's a win. But then, yeah, there's something, we need to do more. We need to. There's more tools here that we can use to better ourselves, and we need to do more than just hold on. I want to correct that. But at least for now, it's like the Braveheart, Braveheart, the Robert the Bruce's father. He's like, I'd like to, you want to charge out there with William Wallace? I would too. It's Longshanks is the most brutal king ever to sit on the throne of the New World Order. It's time to survive, Robert the Bruce. And we pressed you land and title because your ancestors, the Bruces, because they didn't run off. And they were greedy bastards that made backroom deals with people like Longshanks. Really commemorative. Commemorative. whatever, really admirable people. Commemorative. You speak for an hour and see if some stupid shit don't come out of your mouth. Um, anyway, guys, I guess that's it for the Olympics. It wasn't as dark, the feel of it. I'm no energy person, or I can't see auras. I'm not that. Like I've talked so long. I'm not that intuitive, I guess is the right word, but that's not right. The word I have a sense sometimes like that. I'm not as good as many others in this community, but the feel of it wasn't as nearly as dark as the darkest thing I've ever felt or have ever seen was the 2020 into 2021 ball drop ceremony in Times Square, New York City. I've never seen anything as so depressing, so dark. Um, that if that is the lowest point of humanity in our lifetimes, that would make sense to me. That's what it felt like, that New Year's Eve thing. Like they were almost like it was like a no hope feeling, like this is just the world's over. And then, but on the opposite of that was slowly that might have been the lowest point of everything they're going to be able to pull off. But the world will still never go back. The highest point recently was absolutely that PGA Phil Mickelson golf tournament where thousands of South Carolina fans just without any sort of masks or face covering just came and got a huge mob and swarmed Phil Mickelson and as he walked up the fairway. And actually, as I was watching it, you kind of struggle was like, did they want this to happen or did the people like break through the police lines? I don't know, but it was very positive. It looked like the old world we remember. I enjoyed watching it. The fans were, all over each other, and I thought, okay, if they did break through the police lines, are they going to use this as a super esser event, super spreader event, is a super esser, a suppressor event? Are they going to use this like, oh, these people were responsible, so we can't have this anymore? And I was just waiting for them to have used it in a negative, to use it and make up stories about a super spreader event. But they didn't use it. They didn't use it at all, which to me, it might have been completely planned. I can hear you from your bathtub. It probably is all planned out, and it was part of at least telling, just like the box of on Coke Zero, the saying on the box, it's announcing to the United States that these masters are going to allow the world, at least the United States, to look somewhat normal for the summer of 21, while of course they keep Australians in prison and the rest of the world is in disarray. There's no fans at all or attendees in the gigantic brand new $500 million, $1 billion Tokyo Stadium. And how they do this, guys, is just per the last video. It's there's means and mechanisms we'll never understand in our lifetime. It cannot be figured out um, by just studying stuff like the truth. Truthers. I said they're laughing all the way to the bank, but we need a new word for bank. They're laughing all the way to the, I don't know what's instead of bank. We'll come up with a different word. But yeah, when truthers just try to break everything down, like everything's real, like there's a rational explanation that comes from the decisions made between men and women as to why certain things are happening and how they pulled this off and pull that off. It's to me, it's 1,000 times beyond anything anybody could pull off. Just the sea event by itself, and when it pull in all the other events of which I just touched on, just 4 or 5 in the last video, could do that with. If you want to do sub events, could do that on hundreds and hundreds of different events. If you want to do sub events like the presentation of Elon Musk inside of the overall general presentation of space, for example, eventually all of it, like I've done with Greg several times, you hit a wall, you hit a reality breakdown, if you're willing to go far enough into the maze. So, I don't know why anybody would watch any sort of truth channel that is trying to make a presentation as if every element is real. I just don't understand that at this point. Um, if you think that sounds like a cop out or something, you just haven't gone through the examples. I could do six. This channel could I could go get the book and get the book. Get the book. I could get the book and go through the if the world were real section, what are the chances section. I could do 6 months this channel, just one example at a time, as to how every one, if you follow it back far enough, becomes a reality breakdown. How if just regular people, or ultimately it's just regular people making decisions, even if those people are very dark and compromised and of the system, that it just wouldn't come out like this. It needs something, there's something else that created this, something we can't quite put our finger on. So, it's like the first rule of truth. If you come up against one reality breakdown and you know it's a reality breakdown, there's no way to explain it. Then once it happens once, then it happens. Then why wouldn't it happen twice? And then by that rationale, happen thousands of times potentially. It's like the first rule of truth. So that catastrophe thespian is obviously giving a fake presentation. Well, then just turn it off. You don't need to see anymore. Sometimes it's fun to analyze it, to take it to the next level and say, well, that's such a bad presentation. It's actually bad on purpose. It's a mistake on purpose. It's a breadcrumb put there for us. What does it want us to do with it, and why? So that's interesting too. But guys, at the end of the day, how long is this? Oh boy, it's a half page. I mean, it's just it's a half page. You just have to try to hold the path, hold the course until you figure out how you can use the tools of this place to better yourself spiritually, or the aspect of you that's not here. It might take a while to figure that part out, and just until then, just hold on. Just don't give any part of yourself away, and you know just make sure you stay tuned to the part of the dial where pretty much we all are now, where they can't, the little frequency and the little messages, and it just doesn't work on us. It doesn't work on us. And I wouldn't go back, neither would you. So by that definition, the situation out the window is actually preferred. Thanks, guys. Oh, I don't know if Rob's back from vacation. I don't know if I don't know mentally I'll be able to do something for a free voice tomorrow. But it will be, you know, Rob was and I were when we talked, we don't want to miss a weekend for free voice. But if anything at all happens to this channel, I mean, one thing, if they slap my hand one more time, I'm done the whole platform. It'll be free voice all the time. And when this is Rob sold his other business, this is my livelihood. There will be a small monthly once we go exclusively to free voice, to pay, put food on the table. Thanks, guys. Although I do appreciate there's a lot of people that send in $3 a month or $5 a month or whatever, and that my bills are paid, and I thank the people that do that. I truly do. Thank you.